Hi everyone, my name is Laura and I'm here with Dean to reveal some significant improvements in VIZOR's latest release. So Dean, can you actually show us a few of the new features and the look and feel of VIZOR?
Yeah, sure. So there's a new color scheme, and we also have some new modern looking icons as well. For IT asset managers, by default, we've added the charges and fees functionality as a quick link to their homepage. So charges and fees was introduced in the last release, but it's now available by default to IT asset managers. So if there's a fee, for example, maybe a screen replacement related to an asset, then it's easy for asset managers to see the status of that chargeback. If we go to the assets view, then there's been some usability improvements to the summary list as well. So if we just dive into here and look at some desktops, then we can see for the status of each of the assets, then we have a color coding system. So we can see those assigned in blue, in storage, and those which are in repair in orange there. We're using the same color coding system within our reports as well. So at a glance, it's more easy to see the status of the assets. On the summary list too, we're now by default hiding some of the action buttons along the right here, unless one or more assets are selected, and then we show the buttons. So the more context aware, and the buttons are there when they need to be, but keeping the interface nice and clean when they're not needed.
Yeah, and I really like that we're color coding here in the user interface and then also in the reports, keeping everything very, very consistent. And I actually want to move forward now. So in VIZOR, we have a great area for monitoring purchases of the assets. Can you show us what's new in this area?
Yeah, so there's been some significant changes to how we're managing purchases with assets in this release. So in previous releases, the purchase information for an asset was at a per asset level, which could have the possibility of duplication of information. So now we're linking an asset to a purchase record, which is much more similar to how we handle purchases for software assets previously. So at the top level, then we're still showing for each asset how much the asset cost, where the asset was purchased from, and when the asset was purchased. But as you can see here, this is all coming from a central purchase. So in this case, we have a purchase for a desktop refresh. Also, another new feature for assets and purchases is that multiple purchases can now be associated to a single asset. So previously, it was one purchase for each asset. Now you can have, as you can see, sort of many different purchases. So here we have a line item. If we quickly view that line item using our new quick view, then we can see the information about that additional purchase. In this case, it's an extended warranty, 5 desktops. And if we click through there, then we can see it has a sort of temporary duration. And if we wanted to change that line item, then we can do so directly from this view as well.
Yeah, I really like this. Also, I want to point out the warranty tab. Apparently, we have some new features there as well.
Yeah, so there's a new warranty tab, and it provides at a glance where you can see if the warranty is active for that particular asset and when that warranty expires.
Yeah, very cool. And for our IT asset management module, we've also introduced a few reports. Can you bring us through some of those?
Yeah, so there's a number of new reports. We have a new book value report. So this can be opened based on asset class. So in this case, I've opened it for all of the computers, and we can see those different asset types associated with computers, so desktops and Chromebooks. If we scroll down, then we have a breakdown as well of the information. So for desktops, we can see our average purchase price, so just shy of $600 there. And after 12 months usage, then we can see the current book value of each of the assets, so the $214. And we also total up the total book value, in this case, for all of the desktop assets. So the book value is based on the depreciation scheme, which is linked to each of the individual assets, and the current sort of stage of the life cycle of those assets. Another new report is the asset changes report. So this can be opened using a number of different parameters. So it could be all the changes associated maybe to an employee or an asset type. In this case, I've set a date range. I want to see all the changes within a particular month. So at the top here, we see all the assets which have changed within that time frame, and we have a breakdown of each of the individual assets which have changed. And if we scroll down, then we can see some more detail on each of those changes. So for example, here we can see a Chromebook was assigned to Chris. When it was assigned, it moved from in storage to an assigned status. And it's also been linked now to a department and a location.
Yeah, and I love that you're seeing the color coding in this report, which we were talking about earlier. So that's very cool to see that full circle. And I want to kind of shift gears here and talk about approval workflows. We have a pretty cool new feature, if you can show us that too.
Yeah, so there's been some nice changes to approval workflows within this release. So we have a number of new macros and workflows for where all people reject or a subset of people reject an approval. But yeah, one of my favorite new features is the ability to set an approval based on the cost of the asset. And as we see here, we can support a number of different cost levels. So in this example, if the asset costs less than $500, then we have no approvals at all. If the asset is between $500 and $10,000, then we have a management level approval. And if it's over $10,000, then we're requesting approval from a manager and a director. These approvals can easily be placed into any existing approval workflows you may have today. There's a new macro, so if you have a workflow, you can place this approver by cost level very simply into any of the approval workflows you may have.
Software asset management features. Other than VIZOR's new look and feel, Dean, can you show us some of the new features?
Yeah, so we have some nice new usability features for managing the line items and alerts which are associated to a software license. So let's just open a software license here. And if we go to the Purchase tab, then we can select a line item. And if we click on the View Line Item button, then there's a nice new view which gives an overview of the line item. And if we expand the details, then we can see some more information. So we can see this is allocated to the finance department and it's a permanent license. And if we want to edit the line item or the actual purchase itself, then we can do so from this view. We also have a new quick view for looking at the alerts which are associated to a line item. So here we can see that 30 days prior to this particular line item renewing, an alert's going to be sent. We can see who that alert's going to go to. So it's going to go to Chris, and we're using a macro in this case. So it's going to go to the person which is responsible for this particular software application within the organization. And if we want to make any changes to the alerts, then we can just click here and change the alert configuration.
What's also great about this release is the number of new reports that we've introduced in this module. Can we start with the software allocations versus installations report?
Yeah, so that resides on the allocation tab. And it's a nice new report which identifies software applications which have been allocated to a user or a device, but they haven't been installed. So in this case, we can see that there's been 5 allocations, 4 of which are installed on devices, but we have 1 device where the software hasn't been installed. And if we scroll down, we can see on the HR comp device that the software has been allocated, but it's not been installed. So this allows us to either install the application on that device as it's missing, or if the application isn't needed, then we can remove that allocation so it can be used by somebody else within the organization.
And last release, we introduced reservations where you can actually reserve licenses for specific departments. And now we actually have a report that complements this. So can you bring us to the software allocation by department, location, or project report?
As the name implies, there's a number of different ways to open this report, so by department or locations and projects. So in this case, I've opened it with a department view. So at the top, we can see a breakdown of our licenses. So here we can see a SharePoint Cal, for instance. If I scroll down to the Microsoft Office, so that's the license we currently have open, then we can see that 3 of the licenses have been reserved for the finance department and 9 for the marketing department. So this reflects the information which we have on the allocation tab, but in a printable and shareable format, so it's easy to provide that information to department or project managers, for example.
I kind of want to move on to this next report, Dean, that apparently is your favorite report. It's the unauthorized software installations report.
Yes, yeah, it is my favorite new report in this release. So it's available on the installations tab, and it identifies software which has been installed on a user's device but hasn't been allocated to that user or the device. And it's really helpful for software compliance or optimizing SAM processes, and enables IT managers to easily identify software which should be removed or where new licenses should be purchased. So in this example, we have 25 installations of Microsoft Office on our network. Just 4 of those are being allocated to devices. So, and we have 21 where they're unauthorized. And if we scroll down here, we can see those unauthorized devices and the license key which was used during the installation. So we can either remove the software from those devices, or if they do require the applications, then it can be allocated after approval, and then it's fully accounted for within our SAM processes.
Yeah, very cool. Loving all the reports. And finally, I want to highlight another report. It's the Software Expenses and Expirations report. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so again, this report can be opened with a number of parameters. So we could look at just a particular vendor or a particular software application, or a duration as well. So in this case, I've opened it for all software and all vendors, and I'm looking at the upcoming 12 months. So at the top, we get a nice at-a-glance view of what our sort of expected software expenditure is. So we can see there's quite a large amount of expenditure due in July this year. And then we break down that expenditure at the bottom. So we can see in May, we have $2,700 worth of expenses. And we can see what applications those expenses are for. If we're buying through a particular supplier, and the licenses which are either coming up for renew or maintenance associated to them.
Dean, let's just jump right into it. Can you show us a little bit more about managing ticket closures?
Yeah, so there's been some nice improvements to what happens when a ticket is closed in this release. So this surfaces itself in a number of ways. So it can be done in bulk. So for example, we could run a query and select all of the tickets which are older than 6 months, and we may want to close those in bulk. So we can come into the summary view, select all of the tickets and select close tickets. When we close those tickets, we have the option of whether we want to send an alert to the contact or the person who submitted that ticket to let them know that the ticket is closed. And perhaps if a ticket is older than 6 months, then it may not be relevant to send an alert to tell the person that the ticket is closed. Doing so may, in fact, cause some confusion. And so as you can see here, it's an option, so you can turn that on or off, but it's now available within this release. You can also control this at the ticket level as well. So if we open up a ticket, then we have the option to skip the closure notifications at a per ticket level. So we can come in here and decide to skip those closure notifications. This could be useful in a scenario, maybe you're on the phone to the person who submitted the ticket and the issue has been resolved, and you don't want to send an email because they're aware that the ticket has been resolved. So you can come into here and select skip notifications. Then when the ticket is closed, they won't receive a notification.
Yeah, that's very cool, depending on people's workflows. So we cater to multiple different workflows, which is very cool. And I'm not sure if everyone has noticed, but VIZOR has a new look. Can you show us a little around that, Dean?
Yeah, so there's a new color scheme. We also have some new icons as well. For the service desk, then we've refined some of the views. So the state and severity fields are now hidden by default. So they're still available. So if you're using those fields with your existing installation, then that's absolutely fine. But we've just decided to hide them by default to keep the interface nice and clean. And some of the functionality around those fields is dealt with the progress field, which, as you can see here, is still available. Also have a new tasks and tab, which allows help desk analysts to assign a task related to a ticket to an individual. So this may be somebody actually outside IT, and you can separately track the life cycle of that task separate from the actual ticket itself. As you can see, you can have many tasks which are linked to a ticket, each with their own active life cycle.
Oh, that's very cool. I didn't know that. That's a very cool new feature. And now we kind of want to move to the repairs section, because we have a whole section for repairing devices. Can you show us what's new in there?
Yes, so if the ticket is a repair ticket, so let's just change this to a repair ticket, we display a repair tab. On this tab, then there's a number of fields to help diagnose a particular repair, and customers can change these based on those their particular requirements. But in particular, with regards to repairs, then there's new chargeback functionality. So, say for example, somebody dropped their Chromebook, and there's a cost associated with fixing the screen. So we can associate a cost with that repair, and we can charge back that repair to the customer or the individual which submitted that repair. So that would create a new chargeback record within the VIZOR system. So if we go to the home page, the help desk managers and analysts can see the individual chargebacks here. A chargeback can be made to, it could be a department, a cost center, an individual, and it allows help desk to see whether that charge has been paid, for example, because maybe payment is required before releasing the asset back to the individual.
Yeah, very cool. And just before ending this video, are there any reports in our service desk module of this release?
Yeah, so there's been a number of sort of new reports and refinements to reports within this release. So we have an issues by status report. This can be opened with sort of various different parameters. So if you want to look at category or status, for example, or a duration. So maybe you want to look at a month or a whole year, for example. So if we scroll down, we can see an overview of the status of tickets, and we can also see the category of tickets at a glance. And we break down that information as well, so you can see sort of at a more numeric level the information presented in the charts. The help desk summary report, and there's been some changes here. So at the top, we break down how many tickets each analyst has been working on and the status of those tickets. We provide a sort of nice at-a-glance view of our closure and resolution rate. And at the bottom, we can see the average time elapsed for a ticket before resolution. So that's the complete time between open and closing a ticket. We can see the active time IT have spent working on a ticket, and we can see how long tickets are spent in the queue before they've been assigned to individuals. And so it's a nice summary report. It's the kind of report where you may want to set up a report subscription and have this sent to your inbox at the end of each week, for example.
Yes, very interesting. Well, thank you, Dean, for showing us all these new features. And for everyone listening, just a reminder that these are only some of the features from the latest release. There are actually over 30 new features and updates. So if you want to get all of that information, you can visit our website, www.vizor.cloud, in our documentation section. And if you have any questions, you can email us, ask@vizor.cloud, and we look forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you for joining us.